early entrepreneurs, take note. If you are entertaining investors and their request of you is send me your pitch deck so that we can determine whether or not we can have a relationship, run
Yeah.
away.
My strong recommendation is just don't send it. Get on a
Yeah.
call, meet for coffee.
Business does not propel by bits and bytes. It just doesn't happen. It propels through relationships with people.
What's the most common mistake or trap you see with presentations? Quick thank you to our sponsor, the Gents Place. What is the Gents Place? Imagine a country club meets speakeasy meets barbershop. If you're interested in owning and running a business that you can actually be proud of, one built with confidence, community, and consistency, this is worth a look. With top location performance exceeding $1.4 million in gross sales, they are at the cutting edge of their industry and franchising in 30 plus states across the U.S. If that lights a fire for you, go to tgpfranchising.com, complete the form, and book an intro call to learn more about owning your very own location of the Gents Place. Okay, welcome back to the Untrapped Entrepreneur Podcast. I have Eric Harris here. He's actually local. Even better, Eric. You get extra points for being in Richardson. Eric's the founder of GatherRound, a training company specializing in strategic storytelling for leadership teams. He's the inventor of the Campfire Method, federal trademark. Only Eric can use it. A recovering advertiser on a mission to relieve leaders of their addiction to slide decks and guide them to telling stories that stick. All right, so Eric, you don't like slide decks. I've already learned something about you. Okay.
Yes, you are right. We're starting strong, Ben. This is great.
All right, I hate slide decks too, so I think we can be friends on that note. I can't remember the last time I put a slide deck together. I don't even know how to work PowerPoint or Keynote or anything anymore. So,
Oh, you are one of the lucky few. You know, there's about 500 million daily active users of PowerPoint.
oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
mind-numbing to even think about. Well, hey, before we jump in, and I want to go through the trap and some of the traps you've experienced as an entrepreneur. Tell us a little bit about just your entrepreneurial journey. You know, share as little or as much as you want about past or present. Sometimes the present's better than the past, but feel free to share. Just give us a little bit of insight into your bio.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was raised in advertising. I grew up, promoting chicken wings and lottery tickets and Bacardi, and just trying to get people to buy things they don't want or need. And I kind of realized after a while that that felt a little empty. And but during my time in advertising, I kind of became known as the pitch guy, the guy that you would insert into new client presentation, big idea for a current client. And over time, I realized I needed to have a system or a model to approach those big, high stakes presentations. So started to develop the Campfire Method pretty early on in my advertising career. And once I realized I had this framework, I kind of recognized, hey, there's value in this, and teams will invest in it, and there's something to be said about it. So I started GatherRound in 2015, and I had a focus on just presentation training for anybody who wanted it, and did that for 2 or 3 years, and then was sort of tempted by the market to get back into advertising. And I, listened to my clients, and they said, hey, we like what you do for our presentations. Could you do this for our advertising too? And having grown up in that industry, it felt comfortable and warm and like a nice blanket. I'd stepped back into an advertising role, and lo and behold, 2019, we were building an ad agency. And we got to the point where we were about 25 people strong. We had a great portfolio of clients. We were well positioned. But then that lasted a few years, and my partners and I decided to look for a buyer. And at the end of 2024, I started to relaunch GatherRound and go back to storytelling training for presentations for leadership teams.
Got it. Okay. Well, I've already heard a potential trap here, and it sounds like you were trying to leave a place and go west, and you ended up getting pulled back east again. So that's probably one of maybe a number of traps. But I know I've been there before, where you're doing something you didn't necessarily want to do. Maybe it's for the money, or it's comfortable, or both, or something else. How did you end up in a place where you didn't really want to be?
Oh yeah. I mean, I left advertising again just because there was something a little empty about it. Every time we'd launch a campaign for pizza or lottery tickets or beer or whatever it was, I just couldn't help but think about how sure, like, I was helping to build some of the world's biggest brands, and that was sexy and semi-glamorous and exciting. I got to meet Aaron Rodgers and spend a day with him on set. It's like there was things that were so cool about it, but also like it became harder and harder to see that my talents were being applied to making the world a better place. And so, like every year, Forbes publishes a list of the world's most trustworthy industries. And it's always like lawyers at the very bottom and then advertisers right above that. And that's hard. Like it's hard to know that about the line of work you're in and continue to feel good about doing it. But I think the mistake that I made early in starting GatherRound was in listening to the market. I had those clients telling me they liked what I was doing, and asked if I could keep doing it or expand into other territories. And so it was this decision of like, okay, if we're going to grow, we're going to need to add people. If we're going to serve these clients, we're going to need to add people, and we're going to need to grow. And instead of saying no to those clients, I kind of found myself taking on partners and employees. And it was just so tempting. It was just so tempting to say yes because I was so confident in it that I had it in my past. That's what ultimately pulled me back into advertising.
Was it the validation of from the customer, like, man, Eric, you're really good at this. Like, you're the best we've ever hired. We want more. Was it that was just, it felt good to keep doing it?
It did. It did. There was a validation there. And of course, validation comes in many forms. There's, of course, the verbal, the praise from customers and clients and whatnot. Um, but yeah, also there was money in it. And early in starting the company, I would have painted your house if the price was right.
Yeah.
There's very few things that I would have said no to back when, I was trying to feed my family while being an entrepreneur. So, now looking back on it, I know that a business becomes essentially a product of everything the founder says yes to.
Yeah.
And because of that, entrepreneurs need to be very discerning and very narrow, which is really hard in a professional services firm, especially when you're bootstrapping. We weren't backed by anything other than the revenue that our clients were providing, so that made it even harder to say no to some of those opportunities.
I know some ad agency owners. I'm thinking of one in particular. I won't mention his name, but I know that he left a big company, real big
Hmm.
company, started an ad agency from the bottom. And I know he took projects, because I was one of the projects where he's like, hey, I'll do this for X. And
Yeah.
it's like, 100 times less than he would normally charge.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but he needed to take it, and maybe he thought of it as like a stepping stone. Like, at some point, I'm not going to take that anymore. And he told me, like, I'm not going to be able to do this for long, but I have this window, like a non-compete window or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, did you look at it that way, as like, I'll take this now, but I'm definitely not going to take it a year from now when I'm more established, or financially established? Were you thoughtful about it and eventually weaned yourself off, or was it different for you? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, how was that decision making process when you took something on that you didn't necessarily want at the time?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, because one thing that we need to understand about the advertising industry is that it is governed by pitching. So, a lot of new business activity revolves around pitching our creative services to customers. Another way to say pitch is give away work for free.
Okay.
Okay, so
That doesn't
imagine
sound very
this.
good.
No, it's not. It's not. It's actually kind of an epidemic in the industry. It's a real problem because all these agencies, especially the bigger ones with a lot of resources to throw at new business, are putting these teams in front of clients and giving away their ideas for free. They're giving their services away in the hopes that it will lead to a longer term relationship. So, imagine that from literally any other business's perspective. Like, would you give away men's grooming services
Mm.
in the hopes that a customer would come back later?
Yeah.
It's
Tough.
it's
Yeah.
just it's a lose-lose model, but the industry is kind of addicted to this. So when we started Mind Handle, we started our agency, we were committed to not pitching. We said we're not going to do that. We're not going to put our people through that. We were also really committed to creating a an employee centric agency, and we wanted the employees to come first. And so we said we're not going to run you through the ringer like that, to put you in these contests where clients get to choose between you and four other people's work in the hopes that it leads to a relationship. Um, so what that meant was, yes, we had to say yes to some inbound opportunities, even if it meant that we were taking less in revenue than it should have yielded, because our cost to acquire new business would otherwise be very high.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you find your way out of that over time, or did you just go deeper into it before over the years before you sold the agency?
No, I'd say we found our way out of it. And the way out of that is to be strongly positioned. So, as an ad agency, you're competing with 55,000 other agencies just in the US alone. I mean, that's a lot.
That's
That's
a
a
lot.
that's a that's a lot
Yeah.
of competition for what is essentially a pretty commoditized service. I mean, you can get big creative ideas on Fiverr if you want them, So there's there's a lot to be said about being strongly positioned, and that's ultimately how we found our way out of that commoditization. We chose a niche, and we said we're going to be an employer branding agency. We focused on internal communications, recruitment marketing, building advertising campaigns to reach employees, not end consumers. And what that did a couple of things. It, number one, it fulfilled our personal mission, that it wasn't about just building brands for the sake of commerce. It was building brands for the sake of organizational culture and strength and community. And two, it also helped set us apart. We got a lot more inbound requests from new business because we were very declarative about we do one thing and we do that one thing very well.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm curious what your take is on this. Well, let me back up. I heard some purpose focus with you earlier, right? Like
Mhm.
selling more pizzas or French fries or whatever. Are you making the world a better place? And so you now reposition the company. You're doing something that uh, there's a purpose driven mission there, and I want to talk about that. But
Mhm.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on this advice to young entrepreneurs: follow your passion, take the cross section of what you're good at and what you're passionate about, and that's what you should do the rest of your life. You have some people that agree with that completely, some people that completely like hate that idea. And I don't know if it's a Mark Cuban or someone. There's people out there that say that's stupid to follow your passion, do something you're good at, you make a bunch of money, and the big total addressable market. What are your thoughts on that? If you were just giving someone, young entrepreneur, someone advice, and they're trying to think about what to do, maybe they're going to leave their corporate job. How do you feel? Where are you on the spectrum there?
Well, I'm someone who needs to feel a strong sense of fulfillment through the work I do. And I always have been. There are people who are cut from different cloths, and just like any issue, there's going to be people that fall on both sides of it, or as many sides of it as there are. On the spectrum, I'm definitely more of the love what you do, man. Like love your work. If if it doesn't feel like work, you're so much more likely to be successful in it than if every day feels like a slog. And so that's how I've always approached it. But I also know there are people who feel differently about it. And that in order to create that sensation of church and state for themselves, they don't want to love their work. They want to do work and love their life outside of it. And I've never felt like they were polar opposites. I've always felt like work and life are blended, and that if I'm doing work that serves me personally, then I show up better at home. I show up better with my friends and in all my relationships outside of work. So it's always been a blending for me.
Yeah, I share that same perspective. I left the insurance company that I was the fifth employee at, grew it to 150 people over 3.5 years. It ended up going public, multi-billion-dollar company. My boss is a billionaire. I could not wait to get out of that place. I told my
Yeah.
boss when he hired me, he said, "Give me 5 years and you can go start your own business." And I got to 3.5, and I said I could not wait to get out of there because I was looking around, probably similar to what you had shared earlier. Like, am I helping people? Am I helping make the world a better place? I just feel like I'm selling insurance, and then I'm helping other people sell insurance, and I'm hiring people to sell insurance, and now I'm hiring people to service an insurance policy.
Right.
And I just got to a point where I thought, what am I doing? I couldn't imagine doing this. But there are some people that stayed at the company, and there are some amazing insurance agents that I know. They
Mhm.
love it. They are certain they're helping people. They're certain they're making the world a better place.
Yeah.
And I think we're both right. Like, I feel like we're both, like, they're right because that's how they feel and that's what they're doing. And I'm also right that I didn't feel that at all. I felt
Oh
like
yeah.
I could do something. I, there was a not even a better purpose, but there was just a better fit for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So my father is an entrepreneur. He is an independent broker. He works in insurance. And we've had conversations over the course of my young adulthood and into the early parts of my career about me inheriting his business at some point. And the greatest gift he gave me was one day when he said, "Hey, look, I don't want to put any pressure on you to go into this business, but I hope me being an entrepreneur has taught you something about what you want from business." I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, because you've been at every single baseball game, every single drumline performance, everything I've ever done, you've been there for. And so now what I see is if I'm an entrepreneur, that affords me the ability to perform well in my number one role in life, which is dad."
Yeah.
And so and it's not because I hate insurance. Like I love that people find their joy in it. And it's just because I don't find my joy in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's for me, it'd be absolutely mind numbing. I did it. I never want to do it again. But it is a perfect fit for someone else. Like God made all of this so that we were all complementary. There's the guy that picks up my trash probably loves it, and that's
Oh
great,
yeah. Yeah, for
right? You
sure.
get to be
It
outside
takes
and
everyone.
yeah, yeah. He's probably got way bigger muscles than me and fitter and everything else. So yeah, I think it's a really good message for our listeners is, this concept of like pursuing your like for me being formulaic, like passion, skill, intersection, go do that thing seems a little too rigid for me.
Mhm.
But certainly if the work is not meaningful to you, if you don't enjoy it, I couldn't imagine a good life, a successful life, like holistically, doing something you don't enjoy. And
No,
there's a lot of
absolutely
people that
not.
do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there are days. I'll be honest. There were days in running the agency where I was very jealous of Dilbert, for
Mhm.
example. Like that dude put on a tie every morning, showed up to something he hated doing, and clocked
Mhm.
in and clocked out, got the paycheck. And I would think to myself, like, man, I remember even having these conversations with my wife, like, hey, maybe I need to just take a break and like go pump gas somewhere.
Yeah.
And she would say, like, Eric, by day three, you'd be talking to the owner about how to operate the gas station more efficiently. You'd be swimming upstream. You would want more responsibility. You would want more for that gas station than they were prepared to give you. So no, that's not you. Don't do that.
Have you always
That'd
been
be
like that?
I have. I'm kind of relentless, and just kind of ambitious, I guess. That's always sort of been the characteristics that have defined me. I did not really realize that those were qualities of an entrepreneur until I made the decision to go into business for myself. I've always kind of had this weird propensity for risk taking too, which I think is a pretty critical skill set
Yeah.
to have as an entrepreneur. And so I think the combination therein, like wanting more for everyone around me than they even think to want for themselves, and knowing that we can take risks and fail and it'll work out okay. That's kind of that's my DNA.
Yeah, yeah, I share that with you. I just thought of another trap too that I see with a lot of early entrepreneurs where they're working in their minds, a dead end job or a job they hate. They're not passionate about it. They just want to leave. And so, because they don't like their job, they assume that they don't like working for someone. And then they step out and say, well, I'm just going to start my own business. I'm tired of working for people. And not realizing they just didn't like working for that person and that environment. And they strike out on entrepreneurship. And then they find out, to your point, like, oh, I don't like a lot of risk. I can't do this. Like, what do you mean I could
Right.
lose everything? The guy that was supposed to start the gents place with me, we're sitting in my living room, and he was 100% certain he was going to leave the insurance company with me. And we get down to it. I get the business name, and we were friends from high school. So it was my wife and I, and he and his wife. We all went to high school together. And then we get to the point where he's like, okay, yeah, well, I'm going to do this. So I need to make at least 100,000 a year. And I said, well, it's a startup, man. Like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I can't leave unless I'm making at least 100 grand. I was like, I don't know if this thing's going to make any money ever, but I
Yeah,
have to do
exactly.
it. I have to.
Right.
And he did not end up starting the company with me. So I
Oh,
had to
wow.
leave. I didn't matter if I made a dollar. I was hoping I would make millions or whatever. Um, but he realized in that moment, entrepreneurship is not for me. Like,
Right.
you have to have extreme risk tolerance in order to make it. Maybe not to start it, because you could one kind of stupid or ignorant idea, or pie in the sky dream will get you to start it. But there's not a single entrepreneur that's been in the game a long time that is risk averse. I've never met that person.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not. I'd also add to that, and this is my perspective, and I don't think it's unique. I think other people share it. Anyone who's going to jump out, especially from a corporate gig, whether it's comfortable or not, anyone who's going to jump out from that really needs to spend some serious time meditating on why you want to go into business. Because being an entrepreneur means accepting that you are in business. It's not and I didn't do this. I didn't start my company expecting to go into business. I started my company expecting to spend more meaningful time with clients, doing the work that I wanted to do and that I enjoyed doing. And as we grew, I learned to understand that I didn't go to business school. I didn't have an MBA. I didn't have any really right to run a business, but I found myself running one. And fortunately, I enjoyed it enough to keep doing it, but it's not for everybody. The operational tasks add up so fast as you scale. And you can find yourself day one sitting in a room full of clients, scribbling on a whiteboard, having the ideas, having the vision. Day 90, you're in the back office. And that can be a really shocking shift for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny. I'm looking for an orthopedic surgeon right now. My shoulder's messed up. And I found this orthopedic surgeon group, multi location, pretty big group, and it says meet the CEO. And the CEO is not an orthopedic surgeon. It's like MBA, I'm a business guy. I run the orthopedic surgeon business.
Yeah.
And I thought that's perfect. That makes complete sense to me. But how many times do you see the head of the orthopedic surgeon group is the top orthopedic guy that just got maybe tired of doing his craft or,
Yeah.
owned a significant part of the business. So I do think there is something there, especially when you start out. If you just love doing the business, but maybe not being in business, is finding a good partner, trying to be realistic about that. What
Hmm.
work do you love doing? I love the architecting. I love putting all the
Hmm.
pieces together, being a generalist.
Right.
I like doing all of that, and I don't need to take the glory. I like putting the puzzle pieces together. Did you ever read E Myth by Michael
No.
Gerber? Oh man,
Mm-mm.
amazing book. But it talks about the difference between like a technician, so someone that like loves advertising, loves the pitch, and then that person tries to go out and be the advertising agency owner or CEO and finds himself
Mm.
doing 90% of the time doing things he hates.
Oh yeah. Oh, and what ends up happening there, or at least what happened to me, is during a time when hiring wasn't exactly on the tips of our tongues. When a key employee would leave to go follow another opportunity, guess what happens? Ownership dips down in to fill that role. And the really important, the critical work that needs to be done on the business, now that time has been superseded by work in the business. And the agency can become rudderless really easily when you don't have someone playing in that GM position. So it's too easy for that to slip when you are running a company where your product is something that you feel very passionately about.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Before we talk about Campfire Method, because I'm very curious about that, you mentioned something else that I think could be a trap I want to dive into on peer groups. You mentioned
Yeah.
Vistage earlier. I'd always avoided joining a peer group because my business was very social. The Gents Place, a membership based barber and business club. My network is massive. I could tap in anybody. I've built my own advisory groups, mentors just out of my business. If I owned a bunch of
Hmm.
subways, I I wouldn't have done that. I probably would have found myself in an EO or YPO or Vistage much sooner. But I did join my
Hmm.
first group this year. So 17 years in business this month. I finally joined my first group, and it was a purpose-driven group. So there's a Christian component to it that I really liked. Like it's an opportunity to strengthen my faith and my business, and so I felt really called to do that. But you mentioned here, you said you'd wish you had joined a CEO peer group earlier. I want to hear your perspective on that. Do you recommend it, and just tell us about that journey?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the end. I absolutely recommend it. I wholeheartedly would get behind it for any, especially new entrepreneur. It's an investment well worth making. From my perspective, in my work, I didn't, even as a CEO, I didn't have a lot of exposure to other CEOs. We would interface a lot with CMOs and with CHROs and their teams. And that's basically where my C-suite exposure stopped. And what I realized was how limited that left me because those CEO perspectives are so valuable. And I didn't really realize it until I was in the room with 15 of them.
Mhm.
It was much more powerful at that point. Another thing that I recognized, and what led me to join the peer group was that I really came to the conclusion that I was a visionary and heart first leader. And, just I'm a people over profit CEO. And that doesn't mean that I would forsake profit in exchange for, over investing in people, but it does mean that I believe that people always come first. And if you invest in your people, the profit will follow. So um, I needed a peer group to help keep me in check on that because if I was faced with a difficult decision, my instinct was to decide from the heart and not necessarily from the black and white or operational perspective. So I needed that head check every once in a while to stay accountable to the operational parts of the business.
Yeah, interesting. I share that with you. We have a lot in common. That's one of my biggest traps is that
Mhm.
people over profits, but I couldn't even if I wanted to, I could never change. I could never love money or things for that matter over people.
Yeah.
And it is hard because you've got some tough decisions to make. In my peer group recently, the question was posed, do you keep B players? I know this guy's a B. He's been a B for years. He's never going to be an A. He's also not a C. But the human component is he's solid. He's dependable. He's not going to make the business move forward. I can't put people under him. I don't want more B's and C's. But it's a challenge when you love people because you see he's got a family and he shows up to work every day. Did your group help you with that? I'm just curious your perspective on it. Have you had to make tough decisions that kind of
Oh,
overrided your natural tendency?
oh yeah, every day, every day. Um, and there's all sorts of schools of thought on that. Do you keep B people or not? I'm like you. We're cut from a similar cloth. I tend to think, man, if you're not moving the business backwards, then you're part of moving it forwards.
Mm,
And a B player is as important as an A player in my mind, unless you're actively detracting, like unless you're actively destroying something, making the experience for other employees worse or clients worse. If your product is subpar, we can help with that. Like we can train you to deliver better work, deliver it faster. Um, we can't train care though. Like you you cannot invest enough in getting someone to care or find meaning in their work. So if that B player is purposeless or rudderless, then it's probably time for a difficult conversation. But if they do care, and if like you said, showing up to work and doing their best, or at least trying, then yeah, keep them on and train them up.
yeah, I think about you just gave me a visual of being in a boat, and everyone should be rowing really hard in the same direction. I think like a C player is like got their oar in the water and not doing anything, or maybe even
Hmm.
pushing it back. Right, it's a bad
Right.
intention. You can't have that person. Um, and maybe a C player is just got their oar up and not rowing at all and just watching everybody else do the work. But I think I picture a bee like the oars in the water and they're trying to move it and
Hmm.
it's not as that you can see that there's a deficit, but they're showing up, they're trying to move it, they're moving in the right direction. Um, and they're adding value to the team, but there's clearly always going to be, if there's a basketball team or a football team, there's going to be someone at the top and someone at the bottom, but they're all still professionals, right? Can
Oh
add
yeah.
value.
Yeah, absolutely. The time that it becomes a problem is when, well, there are many times, but one of the times it can become a problem is when that person's mediocrity gets celebrated, right? So, like when you see that person do what you know is 75% of a job well done, and the employees around him and her are like celebrating, like, "Yay, great
Yeah.
job," because then that sends terrible messages to everyone around that it's okay to lower our bar on our standards. And so that's when a good leader will intersect and say like, hey, that was great for you. Let us talk about what this company expects overall and let's raise the bar. And that's a pretty tough act to pull off.
Yeah, you just gave me a emotionally charged moment here at basketball. I'm a big basketball guy,
Mm,
and my son's playing on a basketball team, and there's a player that everybody knows is not that great,
yeah.
and the coach is like, I mean, he'll have like 4 or 5 turnovers in a game, and the coach is like, "Come on, man, you can get it together." One other player messes up, right? And he's like chewing him out. But that's not the bad part. The bad part is the coach is putting himself out there as a meritocratic leader. The best
Hmm.
players will play it's all meritocracy. And then once
Yeah.
people see it's not, it's hard for them to believe other things the coach is saying. And so you see that
Oh
and you're
yeah.
like, oh man, it's you're undermining your credibility.
Oh yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's
It
tough to
is
see
tough.
that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the Campfire Method. What you're doing now, you've kind of pivoted the company. So, tell us all about that. You hate slide deck, so I imagine there's not going to be a big slide deck component to Campfire Method.
No, there's
That's all
not.
I
No.
know.
So what we do at GatherRound is we train leadership teams to return to the essence of storytelling for high stakes presentations. And usually that's vision related or company strategy or culture story related. So like I said early on, we used to train anyone who wanted to be better at presentations on how to be better at presentations, and now our focus is really at that executive level. We realized if you wanted, basic off the shelf or like cookie cutter presentation training, you could find that at Masterclass or Toastmasters or wherever you would look for that. But our training focuses on the business critical presentations, investor pitches, and other C-suite level messages.
Got it. What's the big differentiator?
So the campfire method really is the big differentiator. And I actually, even compared to when we started the company in 2015, the campfire method was our product or process then, but it's our product now. And it really is this four-part framework. It's knowing your audience, crafting a story, knowing yourself, and leveraging your environment. And when a leadership team takes on the responsibility of doing those four things, high stakes presentations get so much better. Employees and clients, customers understand better, and people move toward their ideas faster.
And the actual product, as I saw on your website, is a workshop.
It is,
One or
yeah.
2 day workshop.
We do 1 day and 2 day workshops for leadership teams. We also do individual leader coaching, and that's a 6 week workshop sprint.
What's the biggest mistake going back into the traps that maybe presenters make and entrepreneurs are presenting all the time? What's the most common mistake or trap you see with presentations?
Mm. The most common trap or mistake I see in presentations is expecting the audience to be where you are as a presenter. So let me back this up. There's so much information in the world. It is free. It is easily accessible, and most presenters will take the information that is available to everybody, format it in a deck, and make it available to the audience. And so they're not really doing their audience any favors. They're just basically regurgitating. And that's, I mentioned there's 500 million daily active users of PowerPoint. They're responsible for 35 million decks a day. Uh, Now, on top of this, in most organizations, strategic storytelling really isn't there. It's just not really showing up. So, and as a result of this, like I'll ask you, how many employees in the average US company, how many employees would say that they understand their company's strategy?
5%?
You are bang on. HBR says 95% of employees don't know what their company is up to, what it's
Yeah.
doing. And so on top of that, since 2016, willingness to support change initiatives has decreased by 30%, but the number of change initiatives has doubled. And so Gartner attributes this to organizational culture and communication norms. And also, Gartner says only 9% of leaders feel confident in their ability to shape culture. So that's really what the campfire method is all about. It's a lot of times leaders are standing on a chasm. They know they need to present. They know they need their ideas to be understood so people can buy in and understand where the company is going. But there aren't any rocks in the creek. There's not okay, here are the steps that you take to bring those audiences with you on this journey. And so they're left with what tools they have. And what tools do we have? PowerPoint.
Yep.
So in a lot of organizations, strategy has become synonymous with PowerPoint deck. And more often than not, it's revisited once a quarter if we're lucky. And then it sits and collects dust on a server somewhere until the next town hall.
Hmm.
So at GatherRound, we train them to decouple from the presentation deck, bake strategic storytelling into the organization so that those stories stick and so that meaning is ever present in the culture.
What's the virtual um, presentation environment like with your method? Like, there's so
So
much
much better,
Zoom.
Ben.
Yeah.
Well, like let's think about it. So well, most presentations in a virtual format start with the same 5 words. Can everybody see my screen? Right? So now all of a sudden we've taken what could be a moment to build meaning, to make sense of the information in the company, and we've broken it down to be pixel data, and we've put ourselves second in command to our slides. So with the campfire method, we train leaders to be the medium and to offer visual components if they are necessary to reinforce the idea and really sell the story in. But we're untraining them. We're untraining them from years of being taught that you should start with the deck and support it. We're putting them in the front seat.
Yeah, I love that. I believe that entirely, and I ran into a request recently with this platform that is introducing professional athletes to brands,
Hmm.
and a request came through like, "Send me the deck." I was like, "I don't have a deck. Like, I don't have one." They're like, "Well, you
Yeah,
need the guy that owns the platform is like, well, you need a deck." Like, I'm like, "Well, I don't want to do a deck. I want to talk to that guy
right.
to see if there's a fit." Right. And then if he
Yes.
wants some more information, then I can give him some more information. But he's deck collecting. Like, and these are investors, and they're connecting athletes with brands. And it's like a middleman. So he's like
Hmm.
collecting decks from everyone, and he's going to probably, give the decks out. And I was like, I'm not being part of that process. But he's like,
No, good
well,
for you.
but that's how it works. So like, well, then I'm not going to do it.
Right. So yeah, so 100%. And I like, man, kudos to you for making that call, because if business does not propel by bits and bytes, it just doesn't happen. It propels through relationships with people. And anyone who says, "Oh great, I'm interested in doing business with you. Go ahead and send me the deck." That's such a red flag.
Before I
That's such
speak
a
with you, I'm refusing to speak with you until you send me a deck. Not doing it.
not doing it. And hey, early entrepreneurs, take note. If you are entertaining investors and their request of you is send me your pitch deck so that we can determine whether or not we can have a relationship, run
Yeah,
away.
so
That is
true.
not where you want to be.
No, and you know what? The most unserious I am about a business, that's what I'll say. Someone hits me up on LinkedIn, and I don't want to tell them no because I'm a people pleaser. So I'm like, well, can you email me a deck? That's my way of saying I felt like I needed to respond,
Yeah.
but I'm not that interested. And one guy followed up with me. He's like, have you looked at the deck yet? And then I had to tell him the truth. I haven't looked at the deck. I'm not going to look at the deck. I just don't have time for it. I'm really sorry. And
Yeah.
I did, and I shouldn't have done that to him, but it's just human nature to just, it's an easy out. And anyone that falls for that, yeah, it's a great note for entrepreneurs. Like, just don't fall for it, because it's going to be more than likely a total waste of time. And even if that thing does materialize into an investment or a partnership, you're potentially doing business with someone that is misaligned with you, right? You're a people first leader, and they may be a profits first. They want to flip through and find the numbers. And if you have a great investment opportunity and they invest, you may have found yourself with a terrible partner.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like like you can buy a TJ Maxx suit and then you have to wear it. right?
Yeah.
So like if you find yourself in an investor conversation with someone who was first interested in your deck and your numbers, they are then by definition not first interested in you as a human. And
Yeah.
so will it lead to a transaction? Perhaps, but is the transaction the goal, or is the transaction proof? Is the transaction the reward that comes from meeting the goal, which is a partnership or a sale, right? It's so we have to train ourselves to think differently about the way we disperse the information, the way we communicate the value of our companies.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. Well, every private equity and venture capital firm that listens to this probably going to hate me. Like, no, we need the decks, man. That's how we start every relationship. We can't survive without them. But
Oh, exactly.
my strong recommendation is just don't send it. Get on a
Yeah.
call, meet for coffee, get on a Zoom, get on something where you have a relationship to start. If they're really interested in what you're doing, they should take the time for it. If not, you're just one of 100, 1,000, 10,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The way people judge value is by comparison. You can't judge the value of one thing unless you hold it up to something else, right? You can say it's more than or less than, more valuable than or less valuable than. And in a lot of these business relationships, our buyers are looking to judge value by comparing apples to apples. But you're not, unless you're in the business, like unless you're trying to build someone a fence and you're comfortable with them comparing those bids and comparing apples to apples, my advice is don't be an apple. Like, don't
Yeah.
make yourself a completely different fruit. Make yourself a cheeseburger and present yourself to the investor differently so they
Well,
see
and
value differently.
every entrepreneur believes they're a cheeseburger. That's why they started the business. We are
Right.
different than everybody else. Everyone else are apples. We're a cheeseburger. But then you send the deck in, and you're not a cheeseburger anymore, right?
You're just another apple.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, Eric, where can we find you? Website, email, any socials if someone wants to get in touch?
Oh yeah, definitely. Visit gatherround.us. That's the website. You can connect with me in several ways there. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I'll respond to DMs there. And I do publish regularly. So if anyone's looking for a taste of the Campfire Method or some of its tools or the perspectives behind it, LinkedIn is the place to go.
Awesome. And then we will drop your LinkedIn. That's how you and I got connected. We'll drop the LinkedIn URL in the show notes here for everybody.
Great.
All right, man. Well, hey, it was great chatting with you, getting to know you a little bit better. We're going to get you into the gents' place at some point, so I'll send you a pass.
For sure. I
So
could use a beard trim.
oh man, we'll take care of you. No worries. I'll get you a pass
Great.
to come in. But appreciate your time, buddy.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, man.